ensure that when schools reopen for the third quarter, the department is abreast in terms of dealing with whatever were the challenges. The MEC will take us through, but before that, thank you. Let me introduce the leadership of the department once again. I will start at the back, and then at the back is Chief Director, Statutory Advisory and Protocol Services, and Mr. Manweni, and then Director, Community Liaison, Mr. Mtingi, Chief Director, Strategic Management, Mr. Msayu, Chief of Staff, Office of the MEC, Mr. Sokchiga, Acting Director, Communication, Mrs. Mkijima Tokwe. Of course, you know Liz at the back, and Lee, Dineo and Nobulali, staff member. And from the far right, you got the DDG, IOM, Mr. Tembani Mchida. On my other side, far left, is the DDG curriculum, Mr. Ray Kyogati. They are flanking the MECs in the middle, Mr. Fundekate. Mr. MEC, before I give it to you, can we take a minute for the minute of silence for those that are praying so that we can start the session in NS? Thank you. Thank you for the moment of silence. Mr. MC, over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Mtima. Good morning to you all from the media houses. Let me take this opportunity to greet the top management also, and also greet the people of the province, the stakeholders involved directly and indirectly in education, the people and also SGBs from the province of the Eastern Cape. Colleagues, we have convened this briefing as part of celebrating, first and foremost, the birth month of the icon, the first president that has been produced by the democratic dispensation we have, Dr. Nelson Mandela. He once said, as part of our lessons from his insights on issues, a fundamental concern for others in our individual and community lives go a long way in making the world the better place we so passionate dream of. Close quote. During the month of June, we were celebrating the 47th anniversary of the Soweto uprisings, where hundreds of young people were brutally killed for the fight against the then apartheid regime. Under the same theme, accelerating youth economic emancipation for a sustainable future. The education sector, as the leading department in the transformation agenda of this particular country, tabled its own program designated to benefit the youth of this province on the 15th of June in Gqeberha, and on the 29th of June again in Namtata, where we launched the phase 4 of the Presidential Youth Employment Initiative. On the 15th of June, we were in Nelson Mandela in trying to consolidate and deal with the triple crisis that you know, the unemployment, the inequality and poverty that has stricken the young people of the province. On the very same day of the 15th of June, DDGs, we left in Gqeberha 40 million rands, one single day, through the construction of the schools via the renovation of schools, each given 1 million rands for that. So we're trying to respond in terms of the SMEs and also the young people that are in the construction space in Gqeberha, to be precise. All those endeavors were aimed to uplift the lives of the young people who are now facing a different challenge than that of 1976, which I've already alluded into, the triple crisis that we are confronted with. The department has managed to conduct May and June examinations successfully. The marking process started on the 23rd of June and concluded on the 9th of July 2023. It is expected that the results will be released on the 7th of August. We would want to make a clarion call on this one, that parents must be passionate of getting score records of their own kids. It was a bit disappointing on the first quarter when I got some reports that there are still parents that have not yet received their own kids' reports, which is an indication of recklessness in my own view, because you must understand the progression of each and individual learner in the institution via the input of the parents after they have received their own reports, so that teachers can be able to look to the blind spots that might be affecting the kids in one way or another. Of course, also looking into the socio-economic conditions of those households. So if then there is no interface between the parents who have sent the kids to educators, in a way, there is a problem that must be addressed. And I'm therefore saying this time around is going to be critical that all of us take responsibility about the kids that we have given birth to. And we must be able to trace their progression day in, day out, without fail. Again, let me indicate that the department has timelessly processed the payments of all invigilators who were appointed during the marking, including their transport costs. You know, we always have some personnel that are attached to this enormous task who at times battle to get their own proceeds. At this time around, we have made it sure that they receive their dues at an earliest period, so that we encourage people to work tirelessly. And because a productive workforce is a motivated workforce. So the department administered the June examinations in 943 schools in the province, noting that 3 performing schools opted not to participate in the examinations as they have their own assessment programs. It is critical to note that these examinations were meant to provide support to current grade 12 learners who have never been exposed to standardized common assessment from grade 10 due to COVID-19 and its regulations. The SBA provincial moderation started on the 7th of July and will be concluded on the 14th of July, have already been concluded. And DBE has already also provided the feedback to the system by the 13th of July. Program Director, as the sector is aiming to improve its grade 12 results to 80% as our own target in the current academic year, it is critical that from time to time we assess the performance of the system to ascertain if indeed we are on track or not. This we do in order to come up with strategies that will ensure achievement of the desired results. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to indicate that our grade 12 mid-year pass percentage for this current academic year, currently we are standing at 73.7, which is an improvement of 2.6 from the previous year, which was 71.7 when we speak of the mid-year examinations. In terms of our own analysis, you'll remember that there is a dialectical scientific relationship between the first quarter results and the end of the year results. For the past 5 years, we've been observing that. So that's why we are always worried about the first and the second quarter, whether schools are performing quite very well or not, because that's the benchmark that is going to make an indication of what is going to happen during the end of the academic year. On the other hand, the National Senior Certificate pass percentage for 2022 was 77.3, which was an increase of 6.6. Therefore, the improvement is observed in 2023 mid-year results suggests that the province is still on course in obtaining its own target pass rate of 80%, as I said earlier on. The greatest improvements are observed in the rural districts once more again. Quite a very strange phenomenon again this year. It is observed in Krisani East with an improvement of 8.8%, Alfrenzo East at 6.8%, OR Tambo at 6%, Joe Gabi at 5.6%, Amatole East at 5.6%. As you can see, the improvement in these districts is in excess of 5%, which is above the provincial average, of 2.6. The third term of the school year marks the beginning of the last push, a program aimed at addressing weak points and gaps identified during June examination performance. The last push consists of the following elements: the winter schools program, which have been held to a degree of success, and the time is beckoning to the plan of the spring vocational schools program. The curriculum advisors will identify areas of interventions and develop a revision material that will strengthen and consolidate the classes that we have just passed through now. It calls for strict adherence to the policy documents like the recovery annual teaching plans that we have, examinations guidelines, chief markers reports, diagnostic report. All those classes will be supervised and monitored through the spring schools that is scheduled at that time. Our focus area on the high enrollment schools. Districts will organize a set of learner support focusing on special intervention classes made of the following: the learner camps, overnight camps, extended hour programs. The department will provide specialized learner support material with the emphasis on the exam tips, past examination papers, examination guidelines, study guides, the HOD's letter to the learners to motivate and also guides them. Again, in terms of the learner enrollment, low learner enrollment schools, the district will provide to lower learner enrollment schools around the following strategies for their weekend classes, extended hour classes, as well as spring schools. The deployment of subject advisors to teach areas of difficulties will be done. Utilization of the support from partners to complement normal teaching and learning. The incubation of small schools into bigger and performing schools, so that there is that relationship between the two categories of schools. And also the total incubation of the whole with all the subjects, and partial incubation in terms of the transportation of learners for the identified subjects. There, the curriculum section is beginning to classify learners and begin to classify the subjects and begin to classify the performance individually, so that your intervention is specific, not generic. As I said earlier on, that you need a specified intervention. If a kid is at level 1 now, we must be able to answer the question that begins to say, how do you take this kid from level 1 to level 3 in terms of the identified subjects that they are engaged on? If, for example, this learner is at level 5, as another category or classification, how do you take those ones into level 6 and 7s so that you can get as much bachelors as possible as part of the quality of the examinations that you would want to get out of the process that we are engaged on. We have also having a differentiated support for grade 12 learners. The last push requires all of districts to provide differentiated support program to their grade 12 learners as part of the build-up to the preparatory examinations and final examinations. This requires districts to do the following: the profiling of their learners according to their performance as informed by term 1, which I've already said. We must know by name each and every learner in the province. Where is this learner? How has he or she performed? In what subject? What are the blind spots on this particular individual? How do we rescue her or him in terms of making sure that you reduce the number of learners that might have not made up during the end of the year? Expose all learners to various forms of revision and assessment as means of building their confidence and improve performance. And also subjects, or make sure that all subjects and learners are assessed through the building programs that will build confidence. We have already said that earlier on, that this is a cohort of grade 12 who has never been exposed in an examinations environment, who are a product of a tailor-made curriculum trimmed because of COVID-19 almost 3 years back. So you'll remember that by that time, the country took a decision to trim the curriculum to suit the conditions. And therefore, also the assessment was changed using the school-based one, not the examination that they are going to be engaged on now. So it's going to be important that we are able to make sure that the environment has been created such that it is conducive for them to perform quite very well. We have also categorized the Bright Sparks and bachelor programs through the performance of the individual learners that are there. This category of learners already performing at level 5 and above, and the objective is to push them to level 6 and 7, as I have said so. The underlying objective is to improve the quality of the results in inclusive basket categories. If you still remember, last year we have got not less than 63,000 learners that passed. And our task is not to just make sure that they have passed, but they must pass with colors, so that you can be able to trace them in terms of the tertiary institutions that they are supposed to be absorbed into, so that you don't just have learners that passed for the sake of passing grade 12, but you don't have them as part of the cohort in the tertiary institutions that we have in the country. The push is the time of selecting camps to brighter sparks and bachelor learners to enhance opportunities for more distinctions and bachelor passes, as I've said earlier on. Supporting the learners at risk, including progressed learners, the department has developed a set of guidelines for the identification of the learners at risk by schools through profiling the learners accordingly. The number of learners who failed a particular subjects in term 1 and 2, the borderline cases on performances. We must be able to see which are these schools that you can classify them as section 58B, so to speak, and how do you take them out of that zone? Because once they become section 58B, they will be section 58B with kids. So those kids must be taken out of that zone. So hence I'm saying the borderline cases must also be taken into consideration so that you can take them out of the danger zone. The curriculum advisors working with the partners and lead the teachers' identification, low-hanging fruits in all subjects develop a targeted learner support material for learners at risk. The focus is on assessing learners to cope with the cognitive levels in terms of level 1 and level 2 questions as means to improve learners' confidence and performance. The district keeps a database of guest teachers with a proven track record in subject excellence, and those teachers are deployed into schools via the incubation centers with high numbers of learners at risk. We have also identified the digital support. As department, we have also finalized a program of live broadcasting support programs focusing on high enrollment subjects with a schedule for revisioning broadcasting programs to be conducted during the final examinations until the last paper. Schedules for lessons broadcasted are communicated to all schools as soon as possible. They will receive them immediately they have reopened. Key elements for the digital support includes visual lessons that are broadcasted via Microsoft Teams on specified days from Monday to Friday up until they wrote the last paper. The radio lessons scheduled in support of grade 12 learners, TV support programs offered by DPE at a national level, the curriculum website of the department with usage of material to support learners, and lastly, the ECDOE website, which has loaded with requisite support materials for all grade 12 learners and also encouraged to visit all those sites. In terms of the second chance matric program, which we started in 2016, the Department of Basic Education launched the second chance matric program aimed at assisting learners who did not meet the requirements of the NSC and the amended senior certificate. These are all endeavors to give such learners the second chance of achieving grade 12 qualifications, which is a key to all doors of success. It is important to note that all candidates who qualify to write the examination must have a valid SBA examinations written in October and November. You will remember that at some time last year, we had an aftertaste event. Was it Pakaman in Butterworth? It arises out of the school-based assessment. Now this time we have closed up all the loopholes, and the schools have been made to make their own submissions in due time and make sure that everything has been arranged properly so that you don't put learners under pressure. Because in terms of the assessment standard in the country, those kids are not writing for 100%. They are writing for 75%. The 25% is already for school-based assessment. So if you then have got no school-based assessment, there is a likelihood that those kids will fail automatically because you subject them into lower percentage that they are going to write at that time. So hence, the management and monitoring of the school-based assessment is critical in the province and also critical in the country in general for that matter, so that kids cannot be disadvantaged when they go and write the formal examinations in October. The program provides support for 11 high enrollment subjects and languages and other critical subjects the department provides to all people, to all the kids that are there. School functioning remains one of the critical priorities of the department. Every year, the sector sets out targets in terms of results, which our schools must work hard to attain. These set results are achieved under difficult circumstances by most of our schools. Hence, the need to ensure that required resources are availed. It is for this reason that now the department, for the 2023-2024 financial year, decided to fund the schools at a national norm of 1,602 rands per learner for quintile 1 to 3, 803 for quintile 4 and 278 for quintile 5. You will remember that for the past 3 years, in the province, we have been in the region of 900 provisioning of the school norms and standards. Now we have taken a decision to say, let's stabilize somewhere and make sure that we reach the target in terms of the national norm, which is 1.6 per learner, so that schools can function very well without any hiccup in terms of the rands and cents that goes to them via tranches. The payments in respect of the school norms and standards, totaling to the amount of 671.3 million, were made to 4,989 ordinary schools, with a benefit of 1,624,582 learners. So when you talk about that amount, you are talking directly to the benefit of learners, not to the school per se. Hence, we are breaking down who are these beneficiaries of this 671 million that we're talking about. All qualifying schools have received their respective first tranche allocation in May, so that we don't go into the second semester with a non-payment of any kind. The department has already started with the learner admission process for 2024 academic year. Circular 3 of 2024 that regulates learner admission and establishment of district learner admission committees has already been issued to schools. Furthermore, this is to assist a draft policy that has already been developed and is waiting for promulgation through the Bella Bill into law. Thereof, the policy will be approved and shared with all the schools and the key role players. We may be aware that in the Eastern Cape, there are 2 hotspots districts, Buffalo City and Nelson Mandela, especially on the entry grades, grade 1 and grade 8. This challenge can be attributed mainly to the parents' choices of schools rather than schools that are nearby and have availability spaces. Once you talk about Nelson Mandela and Buffalo City, those are metros. So there is a relationship between the interest of the parents migrating from certain areas into the 2 for economic reasons, and therefore put a strain in terms of the absorption capacity and also the admissions policy in education as a sector. So that's why you must have your own plan on these 2, on how to deal with it and develop mitigation, so that the department has developed a schedule of meetings between the hotspot and head office officials to mitigate any potential crisis during the end of the academic year. Because remember, kids must be admitted now, not next year. Those choose in January are defaulter parents. At defaulter parents, we don't want choose in schools in January. Everyone who wants his or her own kid to go to school must go now, so that we close up admissions as per the dictates of the prescripts in December. No one must be in choose in January, because January is the period for learners to be enrolled and get the tuition that is expected of them. By April, the calendar will be closing, and the plan is to ensure that all learners are registered by the 30th of September. And the department is in the process of introducing online registration, which will ensure improvement of learner registration. This will be a piloted program for 2024 academic year and 2025, starting from the hotspot areas, so that you build in a culture in the province, a culture of taking responsibility for the kids. One of the problems that we have been experiencing, colleagues in the province, are kids that will stay in Western Cape and Gauteng during the holidays and come in the second week or third week, and create an impression that admissions are not properly managed. What then saying, every parent must go and find space for his or her own kid now, so that we don't have this problem of the first and second week of kids loitering around looking for schools because either parents have changed work or have changed residence in one way or another. Again, we just wanted to ascertain the people of the province that during this time, we have got a pleasure to announce that the department, after approximately 4 years back, having a moratorium on the filling of the vacancies, precisely because of the budgetary constraints that we have for the past 4 years. Now we have approved the advertisement and the filling of the post of 379 office-based positions, as well as non-educator posts, 379 ones. That talks to not educators, that talks to clerical work, therapists, directors, 5 of them, chief directors, 3 of them, and a vacancy at the level of the TTGs. And some clerks that must be dispersed into schools and as well to circuit management centers, so that you can have an effective administration via that area. In the same vein, we will make sure that we make that publication so that people can be able to apply, so as to deal also with the issue of the unemployment that is there. So we are offering 379 posts that are on the advert. By tomorrow, the HOD is supposed to be signing off that advert with the OTP, so that people can be able to look into it in a space of a week or so that they can be able to apply into various positions that will be there. Furthermore, last week, as the Department of Education, we appointed 100 young unemployed educators to join the mainstream via the interns for a period of 24 months. We chose to at least reduce the number of qualified educators outside there. Even if you don't have a space in terms of the organizational structure, but create via the SETAs, create as an opportunity for them to learn the ministry and the department. Hence, we have taken them as interns for a period of 2 years, so that whilst we are dealing with the absorption of the young people, but also we are shading off the elderly ones progressively, so that you don't have an elderly department that does not have a transition between the young and the old. Otherwise, your systems can collapse. However, Chair, let me indicate that those that have signed their contracts on that day have been given a head start of about 8 months before the end of this financial year. This means that the new contracts will be signed for 2024, effective on the 1st of April 2024. So they were fortunate enough, because it means they will start a period of 8 months, afterwards then start the 12 months that they were contracted for, so that you align their presence and their financial obligation with the financial year of the department. So we have done that sometime last week, and they were in this hall when we were launching that particular program. Also, allow me to indicate that the department has already commenced with the post-provisioning norm process, and it is hoped that the post packet will be declared on the 31st of August. We are rushing up in order to ensure that all that is needed has to be done before anything that has been that has to be done. We have taken a decision as a top management that the departmental services delivery environment is one of the most complex, highly regulated and labor intensive, and therefore means that innovative solutions to contend with these challenges should be explored. In an attempt to respond positive to the service delivery challenges, the department has revised the business model from centralization to decentralized one. For many years, the department's apex has been responsible for strategic management and as well implementation of the business strategy, with districts having less autonomy and functions. This approach rendered the districts to be ineffective, administratively speaking, as all powers has been enabled functions were centralized in the head office. Currently, we have just taken a decision that department has once again taken a conscious decision to devolve the HR and finance powers to district directors. From the effect of 1st of July, district directors were given delegations to appoint all institutional-based educators from post level 1 to post level 4, so that you curtail the red tape that is there in the recruitment process of government. Because you can't appoint a teacher today, tomorrow it must be in the circuit management offices, that week it must be in the district office, that week it must be in the cluster office, next month it must be in the DDGs and therefore HODs. It took some time for us to conclude that process, and hence we just took a decision to say, no. This is unnecessary. This bureaucratization of recruitment is unnecessary. Let the school appoint this person that they want, then the district director concurs and sign that thing off. So that we took at least a week in dealing with that, so that you don't have vacancies that are created by the bureaucratic recruitment process itself, because it will conclude at a very late stage when we have already suffered a bit of a strain. Also, in terms of the phase 4 for the Presidential Youth Initiative, from phase 1 until the phase 4, which is currently underway now, we have also launched this program with the premiere on the 29th of June at Mthatha. The current phase will run until the end of September 2023. The Eastern Cape province has an allocation of 40,000 with 100 positions, and appointments have already been done for phase 4, with the first cohort appointed in February already. The appointment of youth are receiving stipends of 4,081 rands per month. This program has assisted our schools in the following ways: curriculum assistance, who provide support to sector priorities such as mathematics, science, and technology, and further education and training phases. The reading and literacy, supporting teachers in classrooms and support reading initiatives in communities in general. In terms of the learner enrollment program, colleagues, it is known a fact that today learners are grappling with numerous challenges which more often than not affect their education. As leaders of the sector, we are obliged to intervene as such as we can develop a program that will keep young minds occupied. The music Music serves as one of the levers for delivering the key messages to the youngest on the current challenges and the threats facing the nation, like gender-based violence, crime, drugs, alcohol abuse, and teenage pregnancy. During the recent music competitions held by DBE, the National Minister, Mrs. Mamu Enji, in the AB Mutseche Saske, is one of the most prestigious events in the annual school calendar. It is part of the broader strategy for building social cohesion and promoting in diversity and envisaged in the 1996 Constitution, in the 1996 Constitution of the Democratic South Africa. The theme for the 2023 was building South Africa together, leaving no one behind. That's what the minister said when opening up that particular event. The Eastern Cape participated in all categories, both primary and secondary. It is imperative to mention that the schools participated in SASCO are also performing well in terms of their own metric results. During the competition, four schools in the province obtained position 1 and receive a trophy and a check of 20,000 each. Such schools is Nolita Special School in OR Tambo, Mandela Primary School also in OR Tambo Inland, Dabankulu School in Namatole East, Tofimva Basina Secondary School in Krisan. If you look into those 4 schools, they are part of the best performing schools in the province as well. So this matter of extra curriculum as a matter that must be taken as a by the way issue by educators and also people does not feature quite very well here, because these are the first and the foremost schools that performs, whilst also dealing with some of the extramural activities. The following schools placed the first run-ups. They all received trophies and also an amount of 15,000 as well. The Mandela Park in OR Tambo Inland Boys Choir, the Ebenezer Majombozi Senior Secondary in BCM, Nompumelelo Primary in Sarah Patman, Rocklands Farm in Nelson Mandela. Holy Cross in OR Tambo, Bonga in OR Tambo Coastal, Mangelengele in Krisani, Mayekiso in Amatole East, Mali JSS in OR Tambo. In terms of the sports achievements, also, our learners continued to make Eastern Cape Province the home of the legends proud. 111 learners from 47 mainstream schools and 27 learners from Elsin participated in the National Schools Athletics Champions. 1 learner from Basic Special Schools in Nelson Mandela broke a 1998 record of 1,500 meters and got a gold medal and a silver medal in 800 meters. The team Eastern Cape got 23 medals in total. For the mainstream athletics, our team obtained 3 gold, 8 silver, 8 bronze medals. In July 2023, our schools participated again in the National Winter Sports Schools Championship in Benoni, in Gauteng. 9 winter codes were played. In particular, the girls as well as mainstream boys under 17 participated and got a gold, silver medal. In terms of the infrastructure programs, colleagues, as a sector, we are continuing with the provisioning of infrastructure in our schools. This will do ensure that we provide conducive learning to the learners and educators in the process of creating fertile ground for better education outcomes. The total allocation of 2023-2024 financial year is 1.8 billion, inclusive of 12.9 million for early childhood development grant and 3.4 million for expanded public works program. Most of the projects included in the annual budget includes works in existing schools, as evidenced by the allocation of the bulk of the budget upgrades and additions. Typically, the type of work is in existence of the schools, inclusive of maintenance of the existing structures. The department has prioritized the completion of active contracts projects of the value of 911 million and 265 million for procurement additional classes, the disaster projects and minor maintenance projects, amongst others. In addition, 10 major multi-year projects have been budgeted for in this current financial year, an amount of 295 million. The department has embarked as well on a school beautification program, which is implemented in line in terms of education infrastructure grant. We have targeted 181 schools as identified by 12 districts. The program entails 122 schools with high enrollment and high academic performance, and 10 per district, as I have already indicated also. In terms of the sanitation, we have provided 239 schools in the province at a total cost of 65 million currently. The following are projects currently underway. The 191 projects were identified for the upgrades of maintenance for flush toilets across the urban areas, with the municipality connection and education infrastructure grant is gonna be helpful for us to do that task. The 44 projects were previously identified to be implemented under the SAFE programs. However, DPE has handed over those projects into the province. In terms of dislodging program, we have provided 933 schools which has been established and also posing a danger to poor hygiene and maintaining of overflow VIP toilets in the rural areas. Additional eradication of pit latrines is also accounted for through other programs such as eradication of mud structures, the one that we are talking of SAFE, and as well of acid, which includes 2,080 projects in the province, and also 80 of such donated projects by foreign investments like Asopol, South Korean Embassy, Unilever, South Africa, and also the mining companies that are in that space. In terms of water provisioning, we mitigated the water shortages being experienced in the province. For 988 water tanks, we have provided to 322 schools. Appointed contractors have already started the process. In terms of the ECD grant, the department has inherited that function, as you know, from the Department of Social Development. The allocation for that is 12.9 million in 2023, which has been applied towards the maintenance of ECD centers. Of the 15 projects identified for the current financial year, 4 are already under construction and 5 have already been procured in terms of the procurement policy of department, and 7 are in the various stages of planning and design, so that we also integrate the issue of the ECD in our institutions of learning. In terms of safe security and fencing, we have already currently have 214 fencing projects in the province at a cost of 60 million. Of those, 106 are already in construction and 108 has been already completed. 108 has already been completed in terms of fencing, and 106 is already under construction. The reason is to respond to the issues of social ills that affects our learners. You'll remember the issue of the northern areas in Port Elizabeth, where gangsters sometimes get into schools. So you needed to make sure that security is tightened up in those particular levels of schools. In terms of the shortages of classes, we are providing also alternative building methodology for 74 schools in the province at a cost of 32 million. Of course, 28 has been completed and the rest are in various stages of procurement and construction. But 12 additional classes are completed as well between April and June. So we are also, because whilst we rationalize and measure some schools, that results into overflows in some schools, which then requires additional classes. Hence, we are talking about that, and also the allocation of 32 million into that. We are also speeding up the 6 schools that has been identified for hostels with a budget of 109.3 million. Of the 2 are under construction, the Tsokota and Thembale, 2 secondary schools, and completion is anticipated in the first quarter of 2024. So in Tsokota and Thembale, we are anticipating ukuyigqiba between January and March next year. And one of those is Hilltown Comprehensive, which also is currently in the procurement. This is also a multi-year contract, which also will bring in number of learners into the historical school called Hilltown. In terms of the special schools, the department remains committed in making inclusive education a priority, with the following special schools have been identified to be implemented their own projects with a budget of 78 million in terms of renovating some and building some. Kayaletu Special School in Buffalo City, Ikanyisa Special School, Ilingomso Letu Special School, Ematole East, Inomvume Junior Primary School, Maryville School in Nelson Mandela, and also Amasango Career School in Buffalo City. So that you also include the issue of the people living with disability, and also make sure that the learning environment is of paramount importance at that particular level. We are planning to hand over schools that we have already completed, about 8 of them. We are handing over starting from the 27th of this month. The Kobinamba Senior Secondary School in OR Tambo Coastal, in Ward 1 in Port St. John's. We're handing over that school with the premiere on the 27th of this month. The Atwell Madala has been completed now in Namtata, OR Tambo Inland. The Nsizwa Secondary School will be handed over as well. Should be on the 6th, if not 7th of August. Ngubengcuka Senior Secondary School, Mtunyelwa, Ngwiti Primary School, previously known as Ngungu Primary School in Mkanduli, will be handed over in a couple of weeks to come. Mpumelelo Mfundisi Senior Secondary School in Jogabi will be handed over in a space of 3 months to come. But all of them has been completed now. Contractors has gone out of sight. We are looking forward into looking into other schools that has to be considered. Allow me to, ladies and gentlemen, to conclude by saying we honor this particular service and commit that right through the academic year, we will forge ahead in terms of ensuring that the people of the Off Province benefit from the proceedings of their own government, but also looking forward to change the education landscape in the province, but also look into the output that is expected out of us. We have analyzed the trends in the country in terms of the sector. We have analyzed the performance of provinces right through, because we have got a benefit of sitting in the CEM. We have also made our own research and studies in terms of how should we make sure that we don't just make kids to pass. I learned a bit better last CM, TTG Mchida, in my closing. I learned very bitter last CM, only to find that the top 4 provinces of this country are not in any way closer to the human capital and growth of this country. Maybe let me raise it here, this thing. The top 4 provinces of this country do not do maths and physics. They do the soft subjects. In essence, they do life orientation, they do LO, and they do subjects that are not part of the National Development Plan. Now, the question is, who then's responsibility is to produce the human capital if it is not basic education? If it is not basic education, whose responsibility is to produce the human capital? Because the human capital solely depends on the content of what is taught in the theater of production of knowledge and skill, which is a classroom or a lecture room. So if you then say in terms of your NDP, you would want to have architects in 2023, you can't get those architects if grade R is not aligned. If the content of grade R to grade 12 is not aligned, because that misalignment is going to be a misalignment in the tertiary institution as well. And the ultimate goal of what we would want to get as a nation and a country is already misaligned. So hence I'm saying it's gonna be important that we panel beat the content of what our kids are learning so that they learn for a particular purpose. They don't learn to pass, but they learn to contribute in the economy of the country in the next coming 20 or 15 years to come. So the investment that it must be made now must be an investment that is pregnant in meaning, not just about being certificated, get certificate and leave. No, 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 no. There must be a deliberate exercise of ensuring that the young people of this country are prepared to lead this country in the next decades that are coming. And how do you do that? You do that via the content of what must be done in basic education and as well in the Department of Higher Education and Training. It can't be just a question of just going to school and learn. Learn what? It can't be just a process of going to education and learn. Learn what? It can't be just a question of just passing. Passing what? Because that what must be answered when we are all cornered here with a growthless economy in the country. Currently, we have got an economy that is not growing. So any intervention that is made now must be an intervention that understands the crisis of the nation that is confronted with. Hence I'm saying, we can't be learning for the sake of learning here. There must be a deliberate clarion call of ensuring that the content subjects that are taught here respond to the development plan of the province, respond to the national development plan of the province, respond to the climate change that is confronting the global village now, deal with the issue that every day we're confronted with of disasters and storms in the province, deal with the issue of the oceans economy, which is also a nodal point now as this particular generation. So it can't be just an issue of just going to school, learn, and then get certificate and go. No, 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 no. There must be a deliberate making sure that everybody is channeled towards the noble idea that we have at a strategic level of government. Otherwise, my apologies for having taken a bit of your time, Tima. Let me conclude there.
No, thank you very much, Mr. MEC. As always, you serve as the founding, the knowledge founding of that. For us to listen, we take one or two things that will help us further. Thanks, Mr. MEC. Colleagues, we are going to allow, I'm sure Tineo has made some announcement to you guys that those that are needing one-on-one after this must register with us so that we are able to make time for you after this session. Now, the next item is the, just one second, is the Q&A. Colleagues, you'll be allowed to ask clarifying questions. There's going to be a roving mic. You raise your name, your hand. You give us your name and your surname, your publication, and then you shoot the question. The leadership will be able to respond to it. Can you please, colleagues, raise your hands, those that are looking for clarifying questions? Thank you.
Good morning, MEC. My name is Sivinati Kosa from the Daily Dispatch newspaper. As schools are resuming tomorrow, I've been quite following a situation happening at PCM Inner City School, where teachers and parents are in a conflict to an extent that I've spoken to some few parents and they're planning on blocking the principal to access the school buildings tomorrow. They're complaining about the lack of teachers, they're complaining about nepotism cases eyenzeka epha kwesaa sikolo where the principal is allegedly hiring unqualified teachers. So I just wanted to know from the Department of Education, how have you guys solved this problem? And as it is affecting the school pupils, bazoqalisa iterm yabo yesithathu ngomso.
Kulindelani maliwa apha i-Daily News. MEC isebe uyatsho uba ikhona into li-introduce which is i-digital support, which is very interesting. The question is, kwi-districts regarded as poor districts such as your Alfred Nzo and OR Tambo and Jogaba, how are you going to make sure that ukuba there's connectivity? Kuba siyayazi ba iphondo line issue network. Thank you.
Good morning, MEC. Igama lam ngu-Asanda Kachwa. I'm the chairperson of the South African Sign Language and Deaf Institute. I have 2 comments and 2 questions. Perhaps let me start with the questions. I think it is important to note with great sadness that this public briefing is not accessible to the deaf and signing community. In 2023, we are still fighting for the basic access of deaf people who happen to be parents of children who are going to your institution. And secondly, the second comment, in light of the recent officialization of South African Sign Language and also the recognition of sign language as the home language in 2018, we'll notice that the Eastern Cape is still the only department, or the Eastern Cape Department of Education is still the only department that has not employed a South African Sign Language specialist for our deaf children. So what is the department doing about that? And also, my first question then says, what are the plans by the department to improve the quality of teachers in deaf schools who are unable to sign still in this day and age? Because we know that there are no policies in any of our departments or in government that requires our teachers to know sign language, although they are expected to teach in a deaf school. The last question will be, every day we see that our deaf children are falling through the cracks. The last 2 years, we have noted with great sadness the decline of deaf matriculants. We can give you various reasons of why is that happening. But I would like to know why is that gap still growing, and what are the plans by the department to support deaf learners? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Missy. Okay.
No, it's fine. We will take the questions, some to DDGs, in particular the ones that are more operational, and some with the policy imperatives. Let me start with the issue of the appointment of the sign language educators, and also the decline in the deaf matriculations. We have already picked up, you are correct, Hassan, hence we were of the view that the population of 379 that we're talking about also talks to this issue, because is part of the rescue that has to be accommodated in the sector. In the past, we were using the personnel that we use via the redeployment within the PPN processes. But it has not worked for us, honestly speaking, because you were converting just ordinary natural teachers and then go and train them in terms of the barriers of learning that are there. So now we are looking into specialization in the true sense of the word. Hence, we were talking of the therapist as part of that, and also this component of diversifying the employment recruitment to accommodate as well the inclusive nature of the education that we want to build in the province. So via that particular process. Yes, we experienced a bit a decline in particular last year, and the reasons are quite very known. It's one of these capacity of the educators that we have in terms of the areas of or methodology of teaching that is required at that particular level, and hence the decline that I am as well confirming that part of the problem was what you have just raised it now. But we have since started a process of recruiting relevant people to relevant positions so that you don't treat the one-size-fits-all approach in dealing with some of the elements that are there. At the beginning of the year, you will remember that we talk of the e-learning solution that we have to bring in terms of connecting 2,000 schools in the province. That process has already gone to the procurement, is on the final stage now. When you speak of digital support, you are going to require some of these initiatives that are taken at that particular level. Because once you talk online education, you are going to hit the nail on the head, because at times some learners won't be able to go to school precisely because of the weather conditions in the far-flung areas where you have got a problem of road network infrastructure. The fact that there is that crisis of not having bridges and roads does not mean that school must not be there. So you need an alternative to the traditional way of doing things, which then accommodate those that might be affected by whatever eventuality that could be there. Hence, we are also upscaling the issue of the digital support, the online education, online administration. By the way, we are going towards that direction now, so that you also shorten up the process of administration. Lo mcimbi wothathwa kwe-files zisuka ngapha eMbizana ukuze head office zilahleke nolahleka apha endleleni, okanye kwenzeke noba yi-accident emotweni apha endleleni, can create a problem. So that's why I'm saying we are not going to not to take into consideration that we are on the 4YR, we are on the fourth industrial revolution now era, and therefore there must be a way by which sectors of government respond to that broader scale scheme of things, so as to indicate. TDG?
Thank you so much, MEC, and good morning to the members of the media. Just a short one from my side. regarding the situation at the BCM in our primary school, that indeed over the recent past we have observed some disputes, serious disputes there between the members of the community who are parents of learners who are at the school, together with the leadership of the school in the form of the school governing body. And the district office has been trying to resolve the problem amicably. But I must indicate that from last week, it now appears that the amicable solution is not really a possibility, which actually then forces the department to do what the South African Schools Act empowers the head of the department to do. Now, the submission and recommendation from the district director to the head of department, which is actually advising in terms of the course of action that we must actually take, is en route to the head of department. So I think that in the next few days, we shall have resolved that problem, because there are specific sections of the South African Schools Act which actually empower the head of department to act in particular ways when there is a continuous unresolved dispute which affects teaching and learning in any of the public institutions. So in the next few days, we shall overcome the problem. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable MEC. Probably just to start with the digital support to rural areas as well. On top of what MEC has spoken about, I just wanted to include that of all of our districts, we have established what you might call broadcasting centers, where we broadcast live from all of these centers. So that will be inclusive of all the districts. So as a result of that, schools can get offline as well as online broadcasts. Then the rest of is your programs, like your radio programs, your TV programs. But with us for support directly, we are providing that direct support per district. Then coming to support to special schools, I should think this year we went further to create an environment where we are focusing on special schools, especially for the deaf and the blind. We've had a successful winter school, which we especially looking at the standard of sign language in our schools. So we sort of benchmarked with Gauteng, and we've done a lot to support these children. So it's almost a very comprehensive program of support to learners with special needs that is going to go on this year. Thank you, MEC.
Thanks, colleagues. Are there any follow-ups? In light of the absence of the follow-up questions, colleagues, the session will be adjourned. Let's thank the leadership of the department for providing us this opportunity with such information. How many Dineo are looking for one-on-ones? Bong, you. So it means they can sit in. Okay. No, it's fine. Colleagues, MEC will be available in his chair for the one-on-ones. Yeah, MEC yonke ngoku. Thank you very much, Chief.